Hello everyone, how are you? Today I thought it would be fun to show you my journals. So as we enter the new year, 2021, I thought I would take you through all the different journals that I use, how I use them and why I use them in that way. So you'll have seen me do my journal setup for this year. Here it is. And this is in my bullet journal. Now I know a lot of people use a bullet journal as a planner. So here we've got our January layout, January setup, but then what I've done is I use it for my card readings, for my tarot readings. So here I've put in the date, these are the cards that I pulled and this was the message, so I just free flow wrote about the message that came through. And honestly, this is how I'm then using this journal. So there's nothing to do with planning in here or to-do lists. This is more about my spiritual practice, my spiritual journey. So this is also what I wanted to talk to you about, is so planning versus my spiritual journal. So you might have maybe a tarot journal, you might have a journal where you do your morning pages. There are so many types of journaling you can do. Gratitude journal. But for me, something I love to do every morning is pull cards. If you know me by now, you'll know that that's how I start my day. It's part of my self-care routine and it's part of my spiritual practice. And my mental health does suffer if I don't do this every day. It's always helped me with a positive mindset. And so for this reason, that is why my bullet journal is dedicated purely to my spiritual practice. So for me, I feel like a spiritual journal is almost like a sacred space on the page. So yes, it can be a playground. As you can see, there's a lot of art in here. I do collaging, lots of drawing as well, sticking things in, playing around, but at the same time, this is what elevates me. It elevates my mood. It helps me feel connected. So I'm connecting to a higher purpose, and I'm connecting to myself as well. So that's really what my spiritual journal is to me, is it's all about connection, and it's developing my own path and working towards my truth as well. So I'm always, trying to work through maybe negative mind patterns, or work through a tricky patch, or just bring in better self-care habits. All of that is what I'm working through in my bullet journal, which I call my spiritual journal. So if I move on to, this is my sketchbook. So this is actually a traditional bullet journal. It's got, I don't know if you can see there, got the little dots, the dotted grids, traditional bullet journal. This one is an artist's sketchbook, basically. So this started off as a bit of a creative playground. As you can see, I've got almost like a mood board type collage, and then some paintings. This is really, you could call it an ugly sketchbook. It is, to me, that's not a finished piece at all, but it's a place where I can play without judgment. And that's how it started off, this sketchbook of just creating. And to me, I used to feel like art had to be kept separate from my spiritual practice. But the more I work on my spiritual practice, the more I realise my art is such a deep part of that. So I've combined that together, and I don't try to separate the two anymore. So these is what I call my inner landscapes. But this was something I was working through. And then I got to a point, these are what I call my messengers as well. So here you are, where do I need to let go in order to find my flow? So this also became like a sacred space on the page. So I feel as though this journal is more about recording my card readings, and this is more about my artistic flow and my artistic expression. And you might recognise this as well. This was our intention setting for the new year. Again, this was done in my artist's sketchbook. So this is now becoming a more sacred space on the page, and whilst it's still an exploration, I feel like that's part of my personal growth. So I am exploring as I go through. So some of these you'll recognise from previous videos. And yeah, also drawing practice. So again, it's connecting to something else. I find drawing very meditative. I feel like it switches off my brain and it's almost like something else takes over. So it's almost like a meditation practice on the page, and that's where my spiritual journaling has become almost like a lifeline for me. So that's those two journals, and this is literally my diary. So I wanted to show you this purely because this is the place where I do all my planning. It's not fancy, it's not pretty, it is a basic diary. It's got some goals in there. I've not even put in any to-do lists yet, but yeah, this is my diary that I use for all my to-do lists. So I just wanted to show you that this is very separate. My organising of my life is very separate from my bullet journal, which maybe traditionally that's not the case for a lot of people. So I just keep that simple, and I keep that very separate from what I call my spiritual practice. And then I want to show you this one as well. So you might have already seen the first video that I've done with this. This is my daily art journaling practice. So this is literally, you could call it a warm-up practice. This is literally 10 minutes a day, and again, it's part of how I start my day in the morning, part of my self-care practice, part of my spiritual practice. And for me, the two go hand in hand. Self-care and spirituality, to me, are both the same thing. So as you can see, lots of playing around. It's all abstract art, and this is really where I can let go on the page. It's about building up layers, and I've found over the years of working with abstract art that this has actually helped to improve my intuition. So if you've ever had a go at making art, then what I love about it is you can put down a layer on the page, and then suddenly you'll get this internal thought that tells you, oh, I could add this here. So you go with that, add in that next layer with whatever that prompt was, that internal intuition, and then you keep adding to the page like that. And it's such a good way of training yourself to listen to that internal voice, that intuitive voice that's guiding you. And it's also helped me to break through my comfort zone and my fear barriers. So quite often, especially when you're working in layers, you'll really enjoy a layer, you'll really love it, but you feel like it's not finished. So when you add the next layer, you might get to a point where you think, oh, I've ruined it and I don't like it anymore. And again, it's breaking through those barriers, learning to trust the process, and you just keep building on it until you've built something that you do enjoy again. So again, working through the mess and the chaos, and it's a lot like life. I find it's a beautiful metaphor for life because it's not always pretty all the time, and generally we are always working through something. Things get messy. I mean, look at that, that's definitely not finished. You know, I like some of the things that's happening in here, a bit of contrast, but you could say, oh dear, that looks messy and horrible. So again, it's listening to your internal guidance system. I don't like that, I do like that, why do I like that, what's triggering me about that? So it is really interesting as a metaphor for life. So that's why I love having this as part of my daily journaling practice, this daily art practice. And I have found over the years that when I don't do art often enough, my mental health suffers as well. So again, this is linked back into it being quite meditative for me, so it takes me to a different place. I'm listening to myself, my muse. I'm connecting to something that's bigger than me whilst I'm making art, and that's really important for me. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I'd love to know what journals you're using this year. So do you have a tarot journal? That's something else I've been thinking about, just having something dedicated purely to the different tarot cards and the meanings, and maybe creating art around that. So that sounds like a really fun project that I might start later this year, but we'll see how it goes with this, because I'm really enjoying having a sacred space to record all of my card readings, and also having a sacred space to intuitively explore my artwork. So yeah, I'd love to know what journals you use and how you feel like they help you in your self-care practice or your spiritual practice. Anyway, I'll see you again very soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.